This week, the Sedra is Parashat Shelach. So if we're familiar with the beginning of the parasha, the Meraglim, whether you translate it as spies or those who are going to scout out the land, but you get towards the end of the parasha and we get a whole list of mitzvot that actually are very much dependent on living in the land of Israel. And one of those mitzvot is the mitzvah of challah. Now today we don't really do the mitzvah properly. We don't know who the Kohanim are, and therefore no one can really come along and claim, oh, I'm a bona fide Kohen, therefore the piece of dough that you're taking off from your big batch of dough belongs to me. So we put it aside. Some people leave it till Pesach and burn it with the chometz. Others burn it immediately, get rid of it in the bin. Different ways to take care of the unused piece of dough. But what is fascinating is, in the context of the mitzvah of challah, separating that portion of dough, in the same area in the Chumash, we talk about a very fascinating section, Par Helem Dava Shel Tzibur, which was a sacrifice brought on behalf of the congregation when they messed up. They did something wrong. The Sanhedrin, the Supreme Court, guided the nation in the wrong way, and they did something wrong in the area of idolatry. It's unbelievable that could happen from the Supreme Court. But again, here's the power of teshuvah. Nothing defines you forever as a failure. There's a process. When it happens, you can fix it, rebuild the relationship with Hashem. But the rabbis say, what is the connection between challah, this piece of dough, and the Sanhedrin guiding the nation into a mistaken practice that needs to be rectified with a sacrifice? Oh, I'll tell you what it is. That challah is whoever keeps the mitzvah of challah, it's as if he avoided worshipping idols. You think, what on earth? What is the connection between a nebuch piece of dough and an animal that's been sacrificed? Herein lies, when the rabbis tell us these things, there's such genius behind it. They're not just making up games. One interpretation that's so beautiful. Let's go to the life of a farmer. He works so hard, schwitzing, putting in hours of effort, but ultimately he recognized it, that if not for the blessings of Hashem, his efforts wouldn't have been so successful. Not in control of the weather, not in control of so many factors that will determine whether his crops will grow. Now, at what point does he feel that most? We could argue that the point where he has to take terumah, has to take a portion of his crops and give it to the Kohen. That's before he's refined it, made it, it's wheat from the ground, before it becomes flour. And at that point, he's holding it in his hands. He recognizes that connection. He's feeling still a little bit fragile. But by the time you're standing in the kitchen, you're making dough, you've got your flour. It's so far removed from the wheat. How many of us today think about wheat growing in the ground when we're making cakes or bread? We buy the flour in the supermarket. And at that point, the person making the bread could think, you know what, I'm in control here. I'm making dough. Here am I. Everything I've got is mine. And that connection to Hashem gets severed. And then a person comes along and says, oh, one moment, no. Even at this stage, even at the stage where I've got flour and I could forget about the presence of Hashem in my life, I have to take challah because Hashem's commanded it. And without his blessings, I would have nothing in my life. What's idolatry? It's imagining that there's another source other than Hashem looking after us, controlling events. So when a person takes challah and remembers Hashem, you've at the same time upheld the prohibition against idolatry, because you're remembering that without Hashem, without the presence of Hashem in our life, we would have nothing. Genius. Beautiful. So next time you bake bread, although we're living in Chutz La'aretz, most of us, or even in Israel, we don't know who the Kohanim are exactly. We're not quite doing the mitzvah in the way it has to be done properly. Hold that piece of dough and think, oh, this is what Hashem wants me to do, and feel the presence of Hashem in our lives, which might explain why so many people have this custom that developed. It sure not comes from the Torah, to daven for sick people, to gather together and take dough. Mitzvot are not hocus pocus. It's not a magic trick. Hold a piece of dough, throw it in the air, say some magic words, and all of a sudden a person gets better. But the idea is much more profound. When you're focusing on Hashem, then you open up the gates of blessings and everything is possible. Shabbat Shalom.